That's not on Family Matters. I didn't see that on the Cosby Show. Where did I see that? I saw it in rap videos. I said, that looks like my family. That looks like my world. And, you know, I didn't grow up with my dad. My dad didn't want to have anything to do with me. I never heard from him. I never got a card, a letter, nothing, no contact. The first time I ever seen something like that on television was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when he asked Uncle Phil, why he don't love me, man?
I'm gonna be a better father than he ever was. And I sure as hell don't need him for that, because ain't a damn thing he could ever teach me about how to love my kids. How come he don't want me, man?
And it was like, whoa, that's the first time I could relate. And guess who was playing that character? A rapper. Will Smith. Best before Will Smith was an actor, he was a rapper.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode here on The Bridge Reacts, and I'm your host here on the channel, Marcus. Thank you for stopping by to see another episode here on The Bridge, where we're talking about good things, great things, and also positive things as well. Here on The Bridge, where we're trying to decrease the divorce rate, increase long-lasting relationships and marriages, trying to have families stay together versus being apart, and, you know, raising kids in a two-parent household so we have a better chance for our future. Stronger working class, strong community. If you like what we talk about here on the channel, please subscribe, hit the like button, notification bell as well. Welcome to the channel. And some updates about the channel. Editing Marcus is on a strike, unfortunately, and we have some interesting differences, so I'm going to be editing the videos from now on. Shouldn't be too hard, I imagine. I only know so far to really do this kind of edit and this edit as well, so we'll see how this goes. And Editing Marcus, if you're watching this, I apologize. See, apologies. Today's topic, we're talking about something a little bit different. We are talking about staying true to what you believe in with your spirit, what sits right with your heart, versus going with, you know, everybody else, going against the grain, versus being another copy and paste individual that is a sheep and doing what everyone else is doing. So standing on 10 toes with Lecrae, that's not the video's name, I'm just saying that. Lecrae is the creator that we're looking at today, and the video is called Should You Listen to Secular Music? And we're about to see what Lecrae will do. Please subscribe and check out Lecrae and his content. He's a Christian rapper, but let's see what he says.
I am a Christian. I am a rapper. For all intents and purposes, I'm a Christian rapper. I'd be lying to you if I sat here and told you that mainstream artists did not influence the person that I am today. 21 Savage has said it.
If I started making music about Jesus Christ and turkey drives, and how many fans would I have? Zero.
See, oftentimes the industry only wants to hear the most ridiculous glory tales of the hood and disenfranchised communities, because as an artist, if I want to make music from the church to the world, I got to know what the world cares about. If you don't know what they care about, how can you talk to them? You saying, hey, you need Jesus. For what? What do I need Jesus for? You don't know my story. Is Jesus going to pay my bills? And that's a whole nother story. But shoot, why not? I'm here. Let me just speak on this really quick.
This is The Deep End with Lecrae.
I don't really watch Lecrae. I've never seen any of his content before, but this is really interesting. I've only seen this first intro part, and I was like, you know what? This might be a video for the channel. So tell me what you guys think.
Oh, is this going to be me talking about all of the antics, crazy perspectives that Kanye West has going on? Nah, that's not what this is about at all. This is about, well, it's about a lot of things. And one thing I think people have to understand is I am a Christian. I am a rapper. For all intents and purposes, I'm a Christian rapper. But no one is born a Christian. And it's not as if I became a Christian and then started rapping. I didn't become a Christian until I was a grown man. I've been rapping since I was 10 years old. Would I be working on my craft in the way that I work on it were there not influences outside of the Christian world? I'd have to be honest and say no. You know, I didn't grow up on Christian rap. I didn't know Christian rap existed until I was an adult.
I didn't know that either.
I grew up listening to the likes of mainstream hip hop. I mean, all of the vulgar, terrible things that people say, you know, you need to stay away from were actually the things that made me a great artist. Now, that's not to say I endorse the vulgarity, I endorse all of the crazy stuff that was being ingested. As a matter of fact, a lot of those things did have negative effects. But it is to say that you know, that is how I became skilled. And I think sometimes we demonize the very people or systems that often produce in us what God wants to use. So, case in point, I grew up in a disenfranchised community. I lived in between a lot of different places. Initially, you know, I didn't grow up with my pops. My dad, you know, he struggled with his addiction. He wasn't around. So that already puts me at a disadvantage in a lot of senses. And it also makes me a great candidate to want to appreciate music from people who can relate, right? Like, I didn't have the happy family, picket fence, all those things that pop music probably would talk about.
That makes perfect sense. We just pause it here just for a second. That makes a lot of sense. A lot of times we listen to individuals or watch content in movies of individuals and scenarios that really complement or are very familiar to our own story. Reflection in a sense. So if you've had a situation where you didn't have a father, a certain parent in the household, if you were raised in a low income area, like, you know, I'm not saying the ghetto per se or the projects, but a low income area, to a degree, you're going to listen to music, or you're going to, you know, consume the content, watch movies and TV shows that remind you of your situation. It makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So, and I like what he said. No one's really born a Christian per se. You're kind of reborn as one. So
I had the lifestyle and the life that much of hip hop music spoke about, you know, single parent home, disenfranchised, mom struggling, making ends meet, living in some rough communities, influenced by gangs, drugs everywhere, all those types of things.
And to that point, you have a lot of people who actually have nothing to do with any of those things at all, and they still listen to the music, and they try to, I guess, glorify it and make it seem like it's super cool because it seems to be the in crowd. It seems to be the cool thing, even though it's a lot of tragedy, it's a lot of sadness, it's a lot of just like trauma built and embedded in within, you know, this type of content, this type of music. So, but that's what attracts a lot of people, a lot of listeners.
Those were the realities. I took my first prison visit at like 7 years old to go visit a family member. This is my reality. Walking the line at 7 and looking at prison cells and walls, like, this is the exposure that I had. And so what music is going to speak to my experience? You know, we demonize a lot of the music because much of it is trauma. It's just promoting nonsense for the sake of making money, but that's not how it started, especially with rap music. Initially, especially when I was a kid, the music was not some kind of propaganda promoting senseless violence. It was poetry that was crying out about the circumstances that we were coming from and that we lived in. And so for me as a kid, I needed to hear that poetry. I needed to hear voices that articulated the pain that I was dealing with, the suffering that I was enduring.
Some of the most beautiful art out there stems from pain, from suffering. Now, a lot of people gravitate towards, you know, things where it's just, I'm just so happy all the time, unless you're Pharrell Williams and you make a song about happy. But otherwise, a lot of people like to hear about, you know, the danger, the killing, the death, the negativity, the drugs, all that stuff.
I remember, you know, I was probably about, 7 years old, and my cousins were in the front living room in my grandmother's house. This is in Southern California. They're in the front room of my grandmother's house, and I hear this music, and I peek around the corner. It's late at night, and they're watching rap videos. And for all the young kids out there, they used to play music videos on television back in the day. Television's
Music
more
Choice.
than Netflix.
Even before Music Choice, what was it, MTV and stuff like the MTV2?
You know, we would watch rap videos on TV. You couldn't just go to YouTube and find a rap video. You had to watch the show. And that was my first exposure to seeing people who looked like me in environments where I came from talking about things that I could relate to. And it blew me away. And I became infatuated with wanting to hear more of my story. Right. You got to remember, as a young black kid, I don't, you know, especially growing up in the time period that I grew up in, I didn't see a lot of examples of my world. So there were only like a handful of movies that depicted stuff that was relatable to me. You know, they had A Menace to Society, A Boys in the Hood, just a couple, right? Every day there's a new movie that depicts someone else's life that I just couldn't relate to. There's a gazillion movies that could depict a life of some kid in the suburbs who's, you know, got mom and dad. And I mean, there's a gazillion shows. I mean, even the shows that had black people were 2-parent families, the Cosbys, you know,
Family Matters.
man, now I can't remember. Carl Winslow.
Fresh
Family
Prince.
Matters, worlds way away from my world. So this rap music was the music that I listened to hear my perspective, to hear my world articulated. And it was amazing. So you got to think about me as a kid. I walk out in the front yard and I see grown men in their early 20s with their shirt off, with jail tattoos and braids, lifting weights in the front yard. That's not on Family Matters. I didn't see that on the Cosby Show. Where did I see that? I saw it in rap videos. I said, that looks like my family. That looks like my world. And, you know, I didn't grow up with my dad. My dad didn't want to have anything to do with me. I never heard from him. I never got a card, a letter, nothing. No contact. The first time I ever seen something like that on television was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when he asked Uncle Phil, why he don't love me, man?
I'm gonna be a better father than he ever was. And I sure as hell don't need him for that, because ain't a damn thing he could ever teach me about how to love my kids. How come he don't want me, man?
And it was like, whoa, that's the first time I could relate. And
Yeah,
guess who
it hit different.
was playing that character? A rapper. Will Smith. Best before Will Smith was an actor, he was a rapper.
That's true.
And that's what gave him prominence. And so, you know, hip hop culture is really a lot of the language we speak now, a lot of the things that we say without realizing it. It's why Jordans are so popular, because of hip hop culture. You know, it's all the things that people love about me, and oh, you're so cool. All that comes from hip hop culture. It's just that in many ways God has redeemed it, has used it for His good. So that's the beauty of it. It's like when I was young, listening to Kanye West. This is a different Kanye back then, y'all. It's not
different
the
Kanye.
Kanye we dealing with now. Now,
Yeah.
mind you, he's still an amazing creator.
Yeah.
I was inspired by his creativity. I was inspired by his ability to take music and articulate these meaningful things. You know, he had a song, When It All Falls Down, that articulated his struggle between materialism and authenticity.
Right.
And it was like, yes, that's where I'm at. I wrestle with this perspective. But it wasn't just that wrestle, it was his lyrical ability. I mean, think about it. Can you freestyle? I mean, this is not for the rappers out there, but just the average person. Can they just freestyle? Can they just start rapping and just talking about stuff? Probably not. Like, they probably suck. It's not Christian rap. Well, it wasn't when I was a kid. It wasn't like I could be like, oh, let me just find the Christian rappers and start listening to them. There were none. At least I didn't know about them if there were. You know, like, hip-hop music started in the early 70s. Christian rap came in, like, there was artists in the 80s, but you couldn't get access to them unless you probably went to the church or something along those lines. And then the only thing that was popping at the time that I didn't even know about them was DC Talk, and that did not connect to me. You know, no shade. I think Toby Mac is an amazing guy, but that music was not speaking my language. And
So in a sense, I'm just gonna cut this video a little bit shorter than I originally wanted to. Gotta go back to work. But big shout out to Lecrae, and I love what he's been saying throughout this video. And I think what he's about to get at, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Lecrae, if you watch this video, big shout out to Lecrae. You had to create your own, in a sense. You had to create your own story. You had to create your own like vision of what you want it to sound like, you want it to be like. Because in a sense, you have to make this for the same individual that needed it, like you did when you were younger. And it's kind of why I do this on the bridge. But let's get to my final thoughts for the video. So my final thoughts. So basically going against the grain and believing in what you believe in with your spirit, your heart, instead of doing what everyone else is doing, listening to what everyone else listens to, consuming whatever content everyone else watches and consumes. Why don't you make that? Why don't you do that for yourself? Why don't you do that for your younger self that needed it? And you might have not had it, just like Lecrae didn't have that Christian rap. he's a Christian rapper, he didn't have that same type of content, that same type of music that he now ironically makes himself to pass along this message. Instead, he was kind of consuming and kind of rapping the same kind of way that everyone else was doing because it related to him, which it makes sense. It related to his story, it related to his life at the time. So that makes sense, right? But then out of that grew what he has done and built, and that is his own lane in that Christian rap world, because he's well respected in the Christian rap world from what I've seen, what I've known. And big shout out to Kendrick for shouting out Lecrae, right? So we love to see it. Love to see our black men working together versus, you know, tearing each other down. But the whole basis of this, once again, is just creating that for yourself, creating that for an audience that may need to see it. And even if it's going against the grain, if you're doing something else that a lot of other people don't do, that's okay. I do this, and it's not all that successful right now. We only have 280 some subscribers, and the last couple of videos didn't do so hot, even though they are pretty solid videos. You can check them out in the link in the description. But we are still going to keep doing what we're doing here on the bridge. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep making these videos because I truly believe that I could have learned so much as a young black child growing up and trying to understand my boyhood going into manhood. And I feel as though a lot of things that we talk about here on the channel would have greatly and deeply affected me in a positive is, of course. It would have been a great resource for me to understand more about myself, what I want to do and what I want to be, the man I want to be, the kind of person that I want to represent, and the values and morals that we talk about here on the channel often. So I want to leave you with this as the viewer. I believe that you should want to, if even if you're not a creator or a person that does a lot of creating, in a sense, we all to a degree create. And I definitely think that it's best to create something that maybe you might have needed when you were younger, when you were a little bit more naive, when you didn't have all the tools on your tool belt, being able to have a great resource to put out there for the next generation or someone who might need to see it. And so that way they can have that kind of, in a sense, encouragement, so they can do what they need to do and pass on their message. And it's a domino effect. And we're all here to help each other and help the next generation and inspire, that's the word I was looking for earlier, inspire other people. Because whatever we do, people are watching, especially nowadays. People are watching, especially if you upload it. People are watching. So I want you guys to tell me what you think about that, about when it comes to things that feel right with your spirit, how you want to do something. If you want to stand out a lot different than what, you know, going against the grain and being in your own lane and actually thriving in it, and something beautiful may come out of it, a career, a voice, a platform to be able to tell your story so you can inspire others. Tell me what you think. But please subscribe, hit the like button, notification bell as well. And Editing Marcus, we are deeply missing you, and I feel like this video won't be the same without you. So anyways, you guys have a nice one, and I will catch you in the next video. See ya.